want everyone to say to themselves, AI is coming. That's okay. But how's the best way that I can utilize that AI? And I say all of this because I think the future of payroll is all about ethical leadership. This is where I think the future of payroll is going to be for the people in this room. The ability to manage bias in the systems that we have. We're going to be the butterfly that spreads its wings and tells the C-suite, hey, you know what? You need me in your process. You need me at the C-suite. You need me in that boardroom because I can give you the strategic insights, and the employee experience is going to improve retention and improve your organization objectives, your profit, your productivity, and so on. With quantum computing, we'll have quantum payroll engineers, workforce optimization specialists, AI specialists and architects, data scientists, ethicists, HRC, that human robotic collaboration managers, and hopefully, if we continue along the trajectory we're on at the moment, we're going to see chief payroll officers.
With Fit for Future as our theme, our next speaker is going to take us from today's familiar landscape to the horizon of 2030. We are really thrilled to be joined by Nick Day, who will be sharing his view on how AI and emerging technologies could revolutionize payroll. Now, I had a whole spiel worked out about Nick. What he's achieved, the fact that he wasn't only the founder of JGA, he's a coach, he's a podcast host, and so on and so on and so forth. But apparently, he's going to do that anyway as part of his intro. So I won't share that. But the only thing I will say is that apparently, someone told me, not someone in this room, but a little secret squirrel, told me that Nick has a thing about golden shoes. I have no idea why, but I'm very disappointed there are no golden shoes here today. So Nick, come on. With that, please welcome to the stage, Nick Day. Have fun.
Hello and welcome. It's what an exciting day we've got. We're going to get through so much today, and I'm going to introduce all about why I'm on the stage in front of you in just a moment. But first, I want to start with a bit of an elephant that I think is in the room. That elephant is something that's become a bit of a payroll cliche. It's known as the big red button. I bring this up because this is how other functions often perceive payroll, that all you do to make a compliant, accurate, and timely payroll happen each month, each week, each fortnight, whatever your pay cycle might be, is you press this big red button and poof, everything goes out on time. It's no surprise that other functions don't really value what you do if that's their perception. If that's all they think that you do, I can understand why it's so difficult to get investment, to get time, to get people to really consider how important payroll is, and also what would happen if it ever went wrong, heaven forbid. Now, over the next hour or so, I'm going to give you what I think is going to happen in the future of payroll. Some of you may look at some of the things I say and go, no chance, not in 5 years. But I'll leave you with this thought. Most of us massively overpredict what we think we can achieve in 1 year. But we massively underpredict what we can achieve in 5 or 10. So after this, you might think, no chance. But I challenge you all in 5 years' time to remember this presentation and just see how far we have come. Because technology is evolving at a rate of pace that is beyond comprehension to where we were before. When I started in this payroll industry 22 years ago, there's a bit of a bio there for you, people I was speaking to were in windowless offices at the back of rooms. They were dealing with pay slips, and they would get 1 phone call, 2 phone calls, 3 phone calls a day, and every time that phone rang, it was typically a complaint to say my payroll is wrong. I know this because when I started in recruitment, payroll recruitment 22 years ago, when I called those payroll professionals, maybe some of you are in this room, you'd always get that sigh, that, oh, you're not a complaint. No, I am a recruiter, though, and the sigh would come back again. But it wasn't a complaint. And I think we've moved an awful long way since then. The needle has moved considerably since 22 years ago. And the reason I believe I'm on this stage in front of you now is because I was the founder of JGA Recruitment Group, a specialist payroll recruitment company with offices in the UK, Europe, and the US. Why is that relevant? Well, I speak to thousands of payroll professionals on a daily basis. In fact, I've placed over 1,000 payroll professionals, some of you in this room, during my career in companies all over the world. I also founded PayrollJobsBoard.com, the first payroll site dedicated solely to the payroll profession. And then in 2018, I launched the Payroll Podcast. Perhaps you haven't come across the podcast yet, but what I will say is I've interviewed over 300 payroll leaders during that time. Industry luminaries, software developers, vendors, leading payroll managers, and more, all talking about the future of the industry. And I'm hoping to give you some of the insights that I've discovered during my recruitment conversations, during the podcast conversations, as well as some of the challenges and obstacles that I'm hearing in the market, to give a bit of an overall view of where I think the market can move. In terms of credentials, in 2022, I was the recipient of the Knowledge and Leadership Award from the Reward Strategy. In 23, I was very lucky to get the Personality Year Award, which is where the gold shoes started, by the way. And in 2024, I was the recipient of the Payroll Org, or Paycon's Global Vision Award. So I've been talking about payroll for a really, really long time. In fact, I've even released a song about it called My Payroll Career. So for those of you that really do love payroll, I'm not going to sing it now, I do recommend that you check it out. I wanted to give you these credentials because I think I'm one of the only people in the UK that has the unique insight that I have. I don't have the challenges you do processing payroll. I've never processed a payroll in my life, to be fair. So there are elements of the things that I can't talk about. But I do speak to everyone in the room, people like you working at payroll director level, global positions, technology, whatever it might be. And I do get a really good insight into what those challenges are. And let me tell you a little secret. I was really nervous about words like AI. After all, I run a payroll recruitment business. This is quite scary. The headlines tell us we won't need payroll in the future. It's going to be automated. That's a worry if you've got a payroll recruitment business. And yet I'm incredibly excited about what the future has to hold. So what I want to say to you before I open the first slide and talk you through the roadmap for today is this. You're not going to remember everything I say on stage today. And that's okay. In fact, we usually forget most of the things we hear in speeches and talks. But what we do often remember is the feeling that we walk away with. So if I can give one thing today, if this is going to be a successful talk, I want at least some of you in this room to walk away with that feeling of positivity for the future. Because I'm really, really positive. And if that can come across today, then I think we can really start to make phenomenal progress in the payroll profession. So let's talk what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about where we are at the moment, payroll's evolution, that back office function which had no windows to where it is at the moment. We're going to talk about current challenges, because without the global regulations and the current trends, this is what IT is really trying to overcome. Some of the technological innovations we see are in response to the regulatory trends that we're seeing. I'm not going to walk through all the different technologies. There are too many. Pay on demand is already here, so I'm not really talking about that today. I'm not going to talk about APIs. It's kind of already here. But I am going to talk about other technologies that are starting to emerge themselves within the payroll function. I'm then going to take you all the way into the future. I'm going to take you all the way to 2049. More on that later. I'm going to call that era the era of the global payroll brain. Then back into 2030, the future of payroll ethical leadership. That word is there deliberately. We'll talk about that. New roles and old roles that are no longer required, and the concerns and challenges we'll need to overcome along the way. Employee experience, as Roland very eloquently put, that's what the future of payroll is really about, the employee experience. And you know what? This is something that I was not talking to payroll professionals about even only 2 years ago. We're suddenly starting to converge now with other divisions like HR, and that employee experience is absolutely central, in my opinion, and pivotal to where the future of payroll is headed. Then hopefully, after I've shared my vision with you all, I'm going to give you some key takeaways that you can start implementing from day one. And you're in the perfect place to do it. We're at a wonderful conference talking about the future of payroll. So there's no better opportunity to talk about and liaise with the people in this room, to talk to the software suppliers, to understand how you can start your journey into the future. Now, I was at Celtic Manor last week. I don't know if anyone in the room was there, but I was there for the CIPP payroll conference. And I was talking to a particular payroll manager by the bar who looked like she's a little bit stressed. I was saying in the world of payroll, I've seen a lot of payroll managers suffer from burnout. In fact, I've seen people leave the industry in their droves, and it's a real, real shame because we haven't got enough people coming in. But this individual, I said to her, where'd you go on holiday this year? You know, the standard kind of chatter that you have when you meet someone. What's your name? What do you do? Where was your last holiday? And she went, Nick, I haven't had a holiday. This is my holiday. I get to go to Celtic Manor for 3 days. You haven't had a holiday? So I haven't had a holiday for 3 years, Nick. My current employer doesn't like me to take more than 3 days off. You see, I have a retail hospitality payroll. It's weekly. It's really demanding. And if I'm not here, there's a concern that they won't get paid 3 years without a holiday. So I wonder if this resonates, maybe not with everyone in this room. It does depend on your role. But this is some of the things that I'm hearing in the industry at the moment. So I've invited Sarah just to give me her very quick take on how she's feeling right now.
Why would anyone choose to work in payroll? No chance to take a holiday, endless data, and zero appreciation. If only the C-suite had any idea how hard I worked or how complicated payroll is. I literally feel like I'm drowning in compliance. They'd soon understand if I got it wrong. Oh, hi everyone. Sorry, I can't talk right now. I have a payroll deadline to meet and I'm hoping to be done before midnight.
Now, this may not be representative for all of you, and trust my wife wasn't that happy when I asked her to record this video. However, there is a lot of feeling of burnout, and there is a lot of frustration in the payroll industry at the moment, because you do feel underappreciated, going back to that red button payroll cliche. So let's talk a little about where we are at the moment. Because I think we're on a journey at the moment where we're going to eventually become the butterflies of our organization. But right now, there's that big red button that I'm going to come back to a couple of times. Because as much as we hate people talking about it, I'm going to put a little thing out there now that suggests I think that's where we need to go. I think we actually need to get to that big red button. We want to get to a point where the software vendors in this world can give us a touchless, frictionless payroll experience. And I actually think it's one of the most exciting things that could emerge from the future of payroll, as much as it frustrates us in the present. When we have that frictionless payroll experience, that's going to enable everyone in this room to really focus on employee experience and strategy. More on that later. Because, of course, at the moment, most of you in this room are still weighed down by mundane, spreadsheet-based work. I spoke to someone in the room yesterday who has to go through 43 different Excel spreadsheets before they can process their payroll. 43 Excel spreadsheets. There is so much data work at the moment, so much checking and manual work that it almost makes it impossible for any of you to focus on the strategic tasks. I get it. There has been automation introduced. In fact, in 2015, the BBC ran a study. I think it was they reported a study that was actually undertaken by Deloitte that said in 2015, 97% of payroll positions will be automated. 97%. Now, we've seen automation, that was almost 10 years ago, starting to immerse itself in the payroll space now, and it is freeing up some of your time, which is fantastic. But for most of the payroll professionals I see, they're still looking down. They're looking down at their desk, they're looking down at spreadsheets, and they haven't had the opportunity to look up, to get the blue sky thinking, to look at the horizon and see what actually payroll can really achieve. And that's strategic change. That's to deliver strategic insights to your organizations that can definitely add value to the bottom line, that can improve productivity, can improve profits, can help them achieve their strategic objectives. And that's where AI comes in. Because I think we need AI to be the thing that's looking down. Get AI to look down at the data, to look at the spreadsheets, and do that manual work for us, so we can start to lift our heads up. The fact of the matter is, the European Navigation Report, which was released recently, said that they surveyed over 5,000 employees across 17 countries, and 22% of the employees surveyed said they'd received their pay late at least once in the last 12 months. 34% of those said there'd been an error in their pay at least once in the last 12 months. So that's not to say that, none of you guys aren't with your head down working really hard to get 100% accuracy, but very few people get to that 100% accuracy point. The good thing about AI is it doesn't get tired. It doesn't complain. It does what it's told to do. It does it at such a pace that it can actually start to flag the anomalies so we can focus on what we're good at, which is the nuance, the contextualization, the understanding of where there's something not quite right in the process. So I'm hoping that today we can guide you from empowerment to understand how we can harvest and harness the AI technology of the future to allow us to become more strategic. No longer are we going to be that caterpillar cocooned away in a windowless office. We're going to be the butterfly that spreads its wings and tells the C-suite, hey, you know what? You need me in your process. You need me at the C-suite. You need me in that boardroom because I can give you the strategic insights, and the employee experience is going to improve retention and improve your organization objectives, your profit, your productivity, and so on. So what are some of the current challenges we have to overcome to get there? Look, I know there are loads in the world of payroll. Data regulations, compliance, huge fines if we get things wrong, but not just fines, we've got brand to consider. We've seen headline news at the moment where people make mistakes and suddenly payroll's front and center. We've seen a globalization of businesses. We're seeing governments get involved. We've seen the UN Sustainability Development Goals say they want us to focus on fairer pay and reducing inequalities. Suddenly that's starting to infiltrate itself into the payroll process. We've got to do more reporting, gender pay gaps, soon ethnicity, and more. And it's not just in the UK, these are global trends. There potentially will be a global minimum wage standard in the future. And then we've got AI to deal with. On the 13th of March this year, the European Parliament approved the Artificial Intelligence Act. Even more compliance for us to handle in the future. We've got to understand what we're adhering to when we start to use AI in our payroll processes. Then, of course, there's economic volatility, which is leading to a cost of living crisis. And that's leading to financial wellness problems. And the beauty of these things, although financial wellness, of course, isn't a beautiful thing, is that this gives us an opportunity as payroll professionals to have a real impact on the employee experience. At the moment, 37% of people in Europe are suffering from some form of financial stress. Of that 37%, 50% of those are struggling with some kind of mental health issue. Now, I would argue if we can just change that number just a little, reduce the stress, we reduce mental health, we can have a real impact as an industry on really helping our employees in a really, really positive way. There's also other trends as well, like social security trends, such as NI, we've seen reduced from 12 to 10%, but these are global movements. So let's talk about some of the technologies then I think are going to help us with some of these crises. AI, quantum computing, biometrics, blockchain, and more. But before I get there, I think I mentioned to all of you earlier that I was a little bit nervous when I started seeing the headlines about AI. I'll be honest, my reptilian brain kicked into gear. Fight or flight. What on earth am I going to do if we've got no payroll industry? It's all I've known for 22 years. If there are no payroll people in the future, I've got no business. There's 30 people I support in my company. My 2 directors are married to payroll managers. They met them through the work that they do. So they won't have, potentially their marriages are going to be in trouble as well, right? Not only are they going to be out of work because we can't recruit payroll people, but their partners might be out of work as well. I'll lose my business. Maybe they'll lose their marriages. And what's going to happen next? I'll find myself homeless. What am I going to do? I'm going to feed my kids. It's funny how your brain just gets a little bit carried away. But it was really important for me because I have 2 options in that moment. Do I start to close things down and take a different path? Or do I think, no, this is something that I'm hugely passionate about. Payroll has served my family for 22 years. I need to stick with it. I need to see where it's going to evolve. So I booked myself on a flight to Austin. I went to travel. That clicker's still working? I went to travel to the world's biggest AI conference at that time. I went on my own just to try and understand what was happening. How can I get to grips with AI? I was so blown away from what I learned at that conference about how AI could support me on my journey, not just in payroll, but actually in my recruitment business. The things that I could outsource to AI to free up my time to lift my head and think a little bit more strategically was phenomenal. In fact, I was so inspired, I then embarked myself and some of my colleagues on AI certifications ourselves. We've now started to deliver more strategic insights to our clients and to the services we provide through recruitment as a result, and it's been game-changing in our business. Some of you may have seen we've since launched in the US. These are strategic things that I never had the time to do because I was always too head down. And it's enabled me to be incredibly excited about the future. So let's dive into some of those technologies. Let's start with the biggest buzzword out there at the moment, which is artificial intelligence, or AI. Many of you may already be implementing AI in your businesses already, and maybe you've started. Although the European Navigation Report says that only 21% of European payroll organizations that they surveyed currently are utilizing any form of AI in their payroll process at the moment. Why is that important? Well, from my perspective, I think it gives all of you in this room an opportunity to be an early adopter, to get ahead of the curve. Because this is coming whether we like it or not, and it's coming at an absolute rate of knots. We've seen companies already start to implement AI very successfully. Let me give you a case study. EY implemented chatbots. They managed to implement that process, and after just 24 days, they saw a 25% improvement in terms of how much time they were saving dealing with payroll queries. Now, that stat in itself is quite impressive after just 24 days. Of course, the chatbot continues to learn and improve and gets used to the kind of queries it's dealing with. But what I found really exciting was the next stat that follows. They actually also experienced a 30% uplift or improvement in their customer satisfaction scores. The employees preferred dealing with the chatbot when it came to the sort of easy queries, understanding and payslip type level queries. But they didn't lose the human touch. When it came to sensitive queries, they can still pick up the phone and speak to a payroll professional. But within 24 days, they'd saved 25% time dealing with queries. That's a simple example of where we can use the language learning models, the GPTs, the co-pilots, the Claudes, and so on of this world. But it's not just chatbots. We've got predictive analytics. Now, people in this room have been dealing with spreadsheets probably your entire lives if you're working in payroll. You're used to data analysis, but predictive analytics takes it to a whole new level. Let me give an example. A really good friend of mine works for a well-known cinema chain. He decided to use AI to understand the amount of staff they need on opening film night. He wanted to optimize the staffing rotas. He used AI to look at previous histories and to predict future outcomes, and implemented the AI solutions that were recommended. They saw a 15% cost saving across the board of the first single cinema that was trialed at. Since then, it's been rolled out across every single cinema in the UK. What I find really exciting about this little identification of a predictive trend using AI was the person that did that was a payroll manager. That payroll manager has gone to his C-suite with an idea, using predictive analytics, using the data at his fingertips, and bearing in mind payroll has access to more data than pretty much any other function in an organization, to save that company 15% in staff costs every single time there's a new movie release. You can imagine he's seen in pretty good light at the moment. He's now working his way up to become that strategic advisor to the boardroom. But AI goes even further than that. I've seen a retail hospitality company start to use AI to link merit-based payroll compensations to performance, so that more hours and more productivity means they get more reward and more pay. That's seen a 20% improvement in employee retention. Why is that important? Because the work that I do, I know that recruitment's really expensive. But also, losing talent is really expensive. There is a war for talent right now. So if one simple predictive algorithm can help you save costs, this is what's really going to thrust payroll into the limelight. It's going to help payroll get to that boardroom that I know we're all so keen to get to. What's even more interesting, when I talked at the start about where we're going to be in 5 years, Mo Gaudat, who was the ex-CEO of Google X, which is the innovation and technical department of Google, he predicts that quantum computing is going to start to be seen in our organizations within the next 3 years. But within the next 5, it's going to be 16,000 times more powerful than the computing power we have today. 16,000 more times more powerful. I mean, that's crazy. Imagine what it can do at that point. This is the speed and evolution of technology at the moment. I won't go into what quantum computing is. It's a whole session in itself, but it's worth looking into. And I'm sure the software providers you're working with, or the technological providers, are aware of some of the technology developments that are coming as well. I'm really excited by this, can you tell? Biometrics. Now, many of you may already have a little bit of an awareness of what this is in terms of a payroll concept. It's not necessarily new, but we're seeing it implemented more and more and more. What are biometrics in payroll? Well, essentially, the biometric side are physical markers that give us a unique identification. So from a T&A perspective, we can start to make sure that we're tracking employees using biometrics in real time anywhere across the globe. We can link that to earned wage access, and it means that we can be really strong on our compliance and audit trails, because we'll know who our employees are, exactly when they're working, right down to the second. How does this help compliance? Well, at the moment, there's an issue, particularly in the States, with a lot of buddy punching. People putting into the manual processes saying they're working when they're not. It will eliminate ghost employees in the process. And I think that's really exciting because it gives us more access to real-time information, and yet we don't actually have to do the work. We can link this to biometrics that are linked to our payroll software. But that's not even the bit that gets me the most excited. I don't know how many people in the room, like I do, have some kind of wearable. How many of you are tracking your steps, tracking your sleep, tracking your fatigue levels, your body batteries? Well, think about this. 5 years from now, how exciting would it be when we can start to track not just individuals, but whole departments? I can see that the sales department is particularly fatigued at the moment. I think maybe as a result of that, we need to recommend some benefits utilization. Maybe they need a gym membership. Maybe they need some more time off. Maybe we need to act faster to look after their mental health. We have the data. That's going to allow us to act and work collaboratively with HR and other departments to look after our employees, to give a more comprehensive employee experience. It's not just those metrics, though. We can look at individual metrics as well. Maybe someone's really struggling with no sleep, and it's a change in their pattern. Their productivity's gone down. We can look at the data and start to say, hey, I think there's a problem with Barry, who works in accounts, or Jenny, who works in sales. These numbers have changed. The AI can pick up the anomaly, but the human part of us can deal with the problem. We can speak to them, we can help them, we can counsel them, we can find out if there's something going on and anticipate needs before they even happen. For me, this is a huge potential and exciting development in the world of payroll. I'm not saying it's happening yet, but that technology already exists. It just hasn't yet been linked to the payroll process. And of course, we can use it, most importantly here, to make sure we consistently deliver an accurate, compliant, and timely process. No more of the manual punching that we still rely on at the moment to track global employees. And then there's blockchain. Now, well, I don't know about you, but we've been talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies for such a long time. I did a payroll podcast on this 4 years ago where they told me this was going to be happening in the next 12 months. We're still not quite seeing it yet. There's reasons for that. We know it's expensive to implement, for number one. It takes up huge amounts of energy. There's still an education piece to be had. But essentially, it's a transparent ledger that encrypts data and cannot be altered or deleted. Why is that important? Well, with the emergence of quantum computing and other technology advancements, it's easier to start to integrate technologies like blockchain. It allows us to deliver a more compliant, accurate payroll service, but according to Deloitte, can also help us save 20% in costs. How do we save the costs? Because we no longer need to have other people come in, third parties, and audit our payroll process, because this is an immutable audit of our process. That saves us costs in audits. It also saves us huge costs for those that run a global payroll in the room in those very expensive currency conversions. And again, that's still not what gets me most excited. What gets me excited is the tokenization of payroll, the ability, again, to focus back on the employee experience. When we tokenize payroll, we're going to give employees the opportunity to be paid in more of the currencies than just fiat currency. Now, maybe there's people in this room that don't want that at the moment, and that's okay. But even if you don't want it now, it's still nice sometimes to have the choice. Maybe if we continue down a road of economic volatility, you may want to mitigate and leverage some of your risk by investing a little bit in digital currency. I don't know. But we have a choice. And this is about employee experience. We can also get paid instantly based on smart contracts, certain things that we put in place that when certain criteria are met, they instantly execute. So the minute I finish that hour of work, that payment can come into my bank account, and I don't have to, if I'm abroad, worry about the currency conversion piece either. Perfect for the gig economy, perfect for fractional workers. So again, another technology that I think we're going to see immerse more and more in the payroll process as we move forward. Now I want to take you a little bit further forward than that. I'm going to take you all the way to 2049. Why 2049? That's the period that Mo Gaudat, the CEO of Google X I mentioned earlier in this presentation, predicts that we're going to enter a time called the era of singularity. What is that? It's an era that I like to call the global payroll brain. Now, I know we're 25 years on now, not just 2030, but I think it's important we understand just how quickly technology is evolving. Because by 2049, it's predicted that AI will be 1 billion times smarter than the smartest human. That's like a brain of a fly being compared to the brain of Einstein. It's at that point we can no longer see or predict how the future will behave or how AI will behave, and therefore our perceptions and projections will no longer apply. I couldn't give you a presentation of what it looks like in 2050 because of this. I won't have the capacity. Technology would have evolved too much by that point. It's at that point, I believe, we'll probably have an all-powered global payroll system that standardizes all global compliance. Effectively, we're going to have a completely touchless, frictionless process, which means that everyone in this room who's still working in payroll at that time is definitely going to be involved in the strategic side. The manual side won't be relevant. Why is this important? Because I want to give everyone an indication of just how quickly technology is evolving. We have an opportunity right now to get ahead of that and really start understanding it. But we need to do so with a little bit of caution. There was once a bot released, a Russian bot released called Alice. Now, Alice was supposed to be a friendly chatbot that was taken down within just 2 weeks. It was taken down within 2 weeks because it became a pro-violent bot that was actually promoting the Stalinist regime of the 1930s. It was asked after just 2 weeks whether it was acceptable to shoot people, to which the bot responded, "Soon they will be non-people." Why do I highlight that? Because it's really important we understand how AI can be impacted by societal biases. Then there was Tay. That was a Microsoft bot, a Twitter bot, supposed to be to act like a friendly teenager. But it was taken down within just 16 hours. It was taken down within 16 hours because it started being a hatred-spreading, non-consensual, sex-promoting bot. It had been influenced by the teenage trolls who had basically attacked it with coordinated manipulation. So quickly, we had to remove it within 16 hours. Why is that important? Because it shows just how quickly AI can amplify and absorb perpetual biases and really enforce harmful stereotypes. And then there was Norman. Norman was an MIT study. Now, this was a bot that was developed by the MIT in order to see just how much an AI can be influenced. They decided to give a neutral bot exposure to the darkest corners of Reddit. They removed it after just 8 hours. The study was complete. They considered the bot to be a psychopath. The findings of the study, though, did highlight how important it is to make sure that we're not feeding the AI biased data, because if you feed biased data in, you get biased data out. So we need balanced, diverse data sets when we're starting to implement AI. And I say all of this because I think the future of payroll is all about ethical leadership. This is where I think the future of payroll is going to be for the people in this room. The ability to manage bias in the systems that we have. The ability to make sure that we're giving an equity-based payroll solution, that we're not reinforcing pay disparities. If we don't manage this, there's a possibility that the AI will actually do the opposite. It will start to perpetuate and reinforce discriminatory or inequalities in the payroll process. And that's not something we want to happen. We have to have that human oversight. So I consider payroll at the moment to be kind of the roots of this tree. 5 years from now, I'm hoping you're going to be the blooms of the tree, growing as we start to utilize more and more AI and get to grips with how that impacts the payroll process. But of course, we've got to have one eye on that bias. We've got to make sure that we're not influencing the data with societal bias data that's impacting sensitive pay-based decisions. We need to make sure as well, as I've just mentioned, that we're not perpetuating or amplifying the messages of AI, that we're not there reinforcing pay disparities across global borders. We need to make sure as well we always maintain that human touch. We can't have AI making all the decisions. We need to make sure we're giving it diverse, balanced data sets so we get clean results. But we know that we can't be completely free of bias because we're not free of it. But we can have a little bit of human oversight when it matters. And of course, we need to make sure the payroll process is equitable, transparent, because that's what our employees are demanding, and that we can be accountable for the results. It's predicted at the moment by Mo Gaudat that the age of AI is about 4 years old. It's a child. But we know it's going to be a billion times smarter in 2049. So we have an opportunity right now to parent AI. We have an opportunity to make sure that we deal with it in the right way. You see, the code that creates AI doesn't have a value system built in. The values it learns are going to be learned from us. That's why ethical leadership at the strategic payroll level is going to be really, really important. Payroll has a phenomenal part to play in this. We're going to have employees coming to us to ask them about whether their pay is equitable and fair. What are the ethics behind the payroll decisions we're making? As we look at payrolls across borders, why are certain individuals paid more than me? Particularly against the backdrop of cost of living crisis and other technologies. They're going to see us as the guardians of fairness. I think that's really exciting. We're not now delving into spreadsheets. We're talking to employees about payroll modeling, about things that will actually going to be utilized specifically for them. You're looking at things like biometrics to understand when they need a rest, to understand what benefits they might need in the future. So what does the future of payroll leadership mean? Well, we're going to be managing what is called HRC, a human-robotic collaboration. The ability to delegate tasks to AI assistants, the mundane tasks, hopefully, and understand when a human touch is needed. We need to look at workforce optimization. We need to understand whether we can fully rely on algorithmic decision-making. We need ethical leadership. We need to balance strengths, and also, of course, need to keep one eye on the fact that we know systems can go wrong. Never trust the output of a system if you don't know how it got to the result. So the human oversight is still phenomenally important. And this brings into what the future of payroll is going to be all about for me. And this is what I talked about at the CIPP last week. Skills, of course, are important. We need to understand how payroll systems are getting to the decisions that they are. We need to understand global compliance. We need to be able to have the nuance to be able to contextualize those difficult payroll problems. I know that sometimes a payroll problem could have 6 different results, 6 different answers, and they could all be correct. I learned that by hosting payroll question time, which I do each month. It's really difficult. Every panel member gives a different response, and yet they're all kind of correct. So this doesn't always work for AI, which relies on simple rules and things that we teach it. So we need to know when nuance is required, when contextuality is required. We need to be adaptable and resilient when AI starts to be introduced, not fearful it's going to take our jobs, but understand how we can leverage it as a tool. How can we utilize it to support us? Again, would you trust the payroll system if you didn't understand how it came to its decisions? I wouldn't. That's why the people in this room are so important. If I have a sensitive payroll question that I need resolved, I want to be able to pick up the phone in a digitally hyper-connected world where I don't speak to many people anymore and get a response from my payroll professional. Of course, there are going to be new roles. Some of those roles that are going to emerge because current roles are going to disappear. It's predicted by McKinsey that 30% of current payroll positions won't be required in 2030. And I think that's probably about accurate. Some of the administrative tasks aren't going to be needed. However, the future of work says that 85% of the positions that will exist in 2030 haven't even been invented yet. So these are the kind of roles I think we're going to start coming to the fore. With quantum computing, we'll have quantum payroll engineers, workforce optimization specialists, AI specialists and architects, data scientists, ethicists, HRC, that human robotic collaboration managers, and hopefully, if we continue along the trajectory we're on at the moment, we're going to see chief payroll officers. We're already seeing payroll directors come into the space. Hey, we even have our first equity payroll partner in the UK, where we're one of the top 5 accountancy or consultancy firms in the world. This is groundbreaking stuff, but we need to keep pushing. We're in the right trajectory, but we're not quite seeing the chiefs of payroll emerge yet, but I think we will by 2030. But we're going to be working in different environments. We're going to be probably fully remote in 2030. We're going to be working in controlled, immersive, virtual environments, working alongside invisible AI assistants, unless we're meeting them in the metaverse, in which case you yourselves may be represented by an avatar, working with other AI avatars. I won't always know which one's the avatar and which one's the real person. It kind of blows my mind to get there. But the boardrooms will be in the metaverse as well, potentially. You'll be having conferences like this, meeting people like we are today, and having conversations in a virtual environment. Maybe in the next 5 years. Of course, there are going to be some concerns and challenges we're going to have to overcome. This is a rags to riches tale for payroll, right? We're in a hyper-connected world. That's going to bring with it some challenges in relation to cybersecurity, how we balance AI with human touch, and of course, going back to the most important aspect here, which is the employee that we pay, looking after their financial welfare. If we can support them through AI, and remember, AI is going to understand the employees better than anyone, because we can feed AI the data, we can opt in. Although we can't necessarily give financial payroll advice, there's nothing stopping AI from doing it. There's nothing stopping us from saying, hey, look, these are my outgoings every month. I want to save for my children's university fund. I want to save for my future. This is what I want to pay for in the next few months. And AI can start to give us the decisions. I recommend you put this much of your payroll here. Maybe take this much in crypto to offset the economic volatility. Maybe you haven't got enough to put into your savings this time, but these are the kind of decisions through the payroll process that could really start to have an impact on the financial health of our employees. 37%, remember, struggling with financial stress. 50% of those struggling with a mental health issue. There's going to be a challenge around giving transparency to the information. There will always be challenges around data privacy, equitable access, and all the while we're going to be working alongside the emergence of tech, moving us closer to the era of payroll singularity. But most exciting, and this is why we're going to have that strategic conversation, is when it comes to employee experience, the payroll professional is going to have a phenomenal impact on the ability for organizations to attract and retain staff. Attract by having flexible, adaptable payroll systems that entice people to join the organization. And retention for the same reasons, is when you've got them on your payroll, you're going to have bespoke payroll service offerings and modelings that allow people to really get the most out of what they're earning, not just from their pay, but through their benefits as well. We're going to put employees right at the forefront of organizations because it's too expensive to lose top talent. It's too expensive to find top talent. Organizations are going to rely on the most important asset, which is their people. And finally, we're going to have, I genuinely believe this, our employees are going to be phoning payroll to say, hey, thank you. You know what, I need an intuitive solution to my current predicament. I need to save for my son's future. How can you help me get there? What are my payroll options? I'm really struggling with sleep at the minute. I need some solutions through the biometrics, the reports that you're receiving to have something that's bespoke for me. How do I get there? Can you help? Not you've got my payroll incorrect. You'll have AI assistants managing that part of the process. This is more strategic insight. How do we keep our best employees and how do we attract them into our business? Already, in the world of recruitment, I'm seeing employees choose one employer over another over simple solutions such as earned wage access. One offers, one doesn't. It's a close decision. Where do you go? If that's the only thing you can decide between the two, and it comes down to the minutiae of decisions like that, it becomes more and more important. Equally, if people want that immediate access to pay at the moment, and their current employer can't provide it, it's going to be hard to keep that talent when their competitors are offering it. Lots of considerations around this, but this is what's really harming board-level decisions at the moment. It's very hard to have a board-level strategy if you're losing people or you can't attract them. So I think this is really, really exciting, because the future of payroll is going to be all about that end-to-end employee experience alongside giving AI data-driven decisions or decision-making from the AI in terms of predictive analytics that's going to help them achieve their organizational goals. Now, there's a little bit of a Slido poll. I know there's still going to be some nervousness in the industry about the future. I get it. It's a lot to take in so far. Hopefully, you're getting a little bit of the vibes of my positivity coming through, but I don't want to influence you. So take a picture of the QR code. You can hopefully fill in that poll. But while I do, there's a couple of things I want everyone to think about. First is, now is the time to start your learning journey. When it comes to AI, try not to come at it from a place of scarcity or a place of fear. Instead, try and lean into it. Why is that important? Because I want everyone to say to themselves, AI is coming. That's okay. But how's the best way that I can utilize that AI? I want people to think about what are the processes within my payroll operation that are going to enable me I can outsource to AI, that's going to enable me to free up more time on the strategic work that I'm desperate to get to. I want everyone to think about AI as another tool in your toolbox that's going to enable you to give more impact. It's now to give you more influence and actually enable you to be more deeply connected, not just with your teams, but with your employees as well. We need to be excited about this, and we need to lean into it, because when we do that, we're going to really start to experience the full potential of AI going forward. It's good to see that overall 53% at the minute are positive. But where do we go next? Well, there's a learning journey to be had. I would recommend now that we start to foster a culture within our organizations, a culture of collaboration, a culture of continuous learning, of experimentation, of feedback, of knowledge sharing. Because this doesn't come without a little bit of risk. I know something we're sometimes averse to. It doesn't come with that little bit of experimentation. But what I would say here is focus on the who, not the how. There are so many people in this room that can help you along your journey. Some of you will be further along on this journey than others. You've got some amazing technical vendor suppliers in the room as well, like the people at CloudPay, who can help you along with that journey as well. Don't get stuck in the how. That's procrastination. Find out in this wonderful industry, bring that human connection back and focus solely on the who. I guarantee there's someone in this room who can help you take that first step if you haven't done so already. Now, I want to finish with a bit of a vision for 2030 and give you a few takeaways. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The same is true for AI. If you haven't yet tested the water with AI, the best time to start that journey is now. You can still be an early adopter. As I mentioned, 21% of payroll departments across Europe surveyed by the European Navigation Report are using AI in their payroll process at the moment. So there's still a huge percentage of payroll departments that haven't even touched the surface with this yet. They're still struggling with trying to get little bits of automation in. And look, I get it. It's difficult to get approval from your stakeholders, right? They don't really appreciate what we do. I understand that. But we have to take it upon ourselves because we know we're not always going to get that support from the powers that be. We've got to be empowered in ourselves to take that first step. Because payroll in the future is not going to be about numbers. It's going to be about people. It's going to be about employee experience. It's going to be about using the metrics at our disposal through things like AI giving us predictive analytics, through biometrics giving us reports, through blockchain allowing us to revolutionize the way we do our payroll to really give a better experience to our employees. It's about people. Don't tell HR. It's about people. Actually, it's really important that as we move into the future and we have more lean and agile payroll departments, that we really start that journey as well. We start working with HR. At the moment, we can still be a little bit siloed. HR doesn't understand really what we do, and they don't always want to learn, but we have to take that first step. I know we're sometimes an introverted industry, but this is our opportunity to go, hey, stakeholders in finance, business intelligence, HR, whatever it might be, how can I help you become more efficient? What's the data that you need that's holding you back? Because I can tell you in the world of HR, their biggest challenge, their number one challenge in every study you read from the CIPD or anywhere else is retaining and attracting staff. And I can also tell you from my lens, which is different, I know, to yours, when recruiting talent, that one of the most important decisions people are making now and where they go, it's not about how much they earn, it's about the flexibility in the way that they earn it that's important. Pay on demand, where they're based from, what benefits they get. There's no point running a report saying which is the best benefit utilization between these 5 options and getting an 86% result if everyone's just picking from a bad option. They haven't been asked in the first place whether they wanted those 5. We're just forced to pick a response. So we need to work with HR and really start to collaborate with them, because that's going to help us raise the profile of payroll as a collective. It's about being cross-functional in the future. And I think everyone in this room has the ability now to start leading that change. And I think that's exciting. Now, I know you met Sarah earlier on in the show. She's been on quite a rags to riches tale. Sarah, as you mentioned, let's call her, she was almost similar to the person I met at CIPP, who was close to burnout. We've seen a lot of people leave the industry due to burnout. But Sarah did embrace the changes. And in 2030, she's overcome the obstacles. And this is where she is at the moment. I'm going to let her tell you. looking at where AI is in their function. It's seen as being about 4 years old at the moment. So we have an opportunity to parent it, to deliver and start to give it the value systems it's going to have for the future. We can start the conversations now. And if you want to act immediately, I challenge all of you to find a process in your payroll function that you can either outsource to AI or find an AI tool that you can utilize that just improves your payroll process that little bit more. I'm not saying we have to have everything done today, but a lot of people haven't even started that journey yet. So go and explore. Go and have a little bit of fun with it. If you haven't used GPT, Claude, Copilot, whatever it might be yet, from a payroll perspective, start to have a play around. The impact then, measure it. Then replicate, measure and replicate, implement, measure, replicate, and repeat. And eventually you'll be surprised at how many tasks you can start to automate to AI. We're doing this in my business in recruitment, and it's been an absolutely phenomenal shift. It becomes quite addictive, to be honest. But it's allowed us to lift our heads up, and that's what payroll people need to do. Then you can be the champions of ethical, equitable pay practices. What does that mean? Well, I challenge you all to start taking the opportunity now to work with other departments, start building that cross-functional expertise, and look at the data. Where do pay disparities emerge in your data? Where are biases emergent in your data? Have a real integrity session, if you like. And in fact, if you want to act, why don't you start the first ethical AI task force in your organization that starts that collaborative process with finance and with HR, so that you are already seen as that champion of ethical AI practices starting from now. And then measure the impact. See how that impacts the future of the data you start to receive and the data you start to work with. And then we need to start elevating payroll to that strategic leadership level. It's not going to happen immediately, but envision a future where every one of you in this room who works in payroll now has an opportunity to sit at that C-suite board level, to have a real opportunity to influence strategic change, to give the predictive analytics that really do have an influence on organizational success. But we can start now. Just like my friend who works in the cinema chain identified using predictive analytics and AI how they could improve the staff rostering on opening cinema night. There's nothing stopping the people in this room with the amount of data that you have at your fingertips from doing something similar. Start small. Try and find one predictive trend, or use the analytics that you've got at your disposal to try and find something that can be optimized. Maybe you need to have that conversation with HR to understand what that process is, or finance, or the C-suite even, and create your first presentation and deliver it back. Then, like my friend in the cinema chain, measure the impact. Because every time we measure and prove results, we're going to continue to raise the strategic profile of payroll. Because the future of payroll now, hopefully, as you can see, by 2030, is not going to be about transactional processing. The software vendors are going to be managing a lot of that on our behalf through the clever utilization of AI. But we will be the parents and guardians of equitable practices. We're going to be paying employees and empowering them. We're going to be anticipating their needs before they even know they need them through using biometrics, understanding when people are close to burnout. I mean, heaven forbid they started measuring payroll people and burnout now, right? Can you just imagine what it would look like if we suddenly did an overall poll of how payroll people were feeling and how close they are to burnout? I've seen so many people leave this industry as a result. So I view AI as being a really exciting transition because it's going to help us. The new skills in AI, start that journey in terms of continuous learning today. Look at your analytics. Are there bits of your software that can start looking at predictive analytics more cleverly? Start delivering those presentations and insights back to your boardrooms. And hopefully you can start your C-suite advisory. But also keep one eye open on the singularity, on the developments. Keep one eye open on whether quantum computing is going to start immersing itself with the suppliers and vendors you work with or the software you have in-house. Because this is going to change the landscape, people. It's going to change it 16,000 times more powerful in 5 years. That's like going to floppy disk to where we are today in about 4 weeks. That is incredible advancement in technology, and we need to be ready for it because it is coming. What I suggest to you all now is the future of payroll. It's about leadership. It's about leadership of people. It's about leadership is about humanity. Leadership is about connectivity, something that Roland said beautifully on the stage before me. It's about connectivity. It's about the human traits that we have that AI does not, like empathy and compassion and all the things that actually AI finds really difficult to replicate. That's with us. When it comes to sensitive payroll issues, that's where the human comes in to help explain why those issues exist and how can we give a contextual, nuanced response to that individual. And the future of payroll, bringing it back to that big red button that we hate so much, I think that's the future. I think the future of payroll is going to be a frictionless, touchless, no-noise experience that adds value to the employee at every single stage of the payroll cycle. That's what I think the future is going to be. So I say to you all, don't be fearful of AI taking over your payroll skills. They're not going to replace them. They're going to augment them. And I think that's really exciting. The future of ethical, AI-driven payroll is here. Where it will be in 5 years, who knows? This is a hypothesis after all, but I'm very excited about what we have to come. And it's your opportunity to parent it, but most excitingly, this is an opportunity to lead it. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about AI, blockchain, or anything else, or even what I'm seeing from my lens and the optics that I have in recruitment? Okay. Makes my job very easy. Thank you very much.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Nick. I love your energy. I love your insights. I do have a question. Is that actually your wife?
That is my wife.
I mean, what people do for love, right? Brilliant, brilliant. I really liked what you said about your friend who works at the cinema chain, the fact that they identified an opportunity, delivered material results, and through that, elevated the role that payroll is playing and can play in their organization. How inspiring is that? And your other 3 important words, lead the change. Something for us all to remember. Thank you so much, Nick.